let's begin by comparing the offenses.
Mm-hmm.
Not really a contest.
Yeah. Houston is not as terrifying as they have been in the past. That is a product of a couple things. The first is that Yordan Alvarez is injured and a TBD for this series. I wish we knew whether he would definitely be playing or not, but either he will be playing in a somewhat compromised situation or he will be not playing. And that's a big deal because he is their best hitter. He is still, I believe, one of the 3 or 4 best hitters on earth and certainly who you want in your lineup at this time of year. And so Yordan not playing is a massive deal that I wish I knew whether he was or not. However, beyond that, the Astros still have a ton of very good hitters who have had very good seasons. That's Bregman. That's Altuve. That's their catcher, one of the best hitting catchers in baseball, Yainer Diaz, who's more of a new character for them, right? Kyle Tucker, who's now been back for a few weeks and looks great. However, there's just, if you look a little bit deeper, like Bregman has walking the least that he ever has. Altuve's chasing a lot. There's parts of this lineup. Diaz never walks either. Like they feel more pitchable than ever. Now Yordan is Yordan. He is not particularly pitchable, even if he can barely walk. No. However, while they still have way more good hitters than the Tigers, there's at least like they're not as both by the numbers and by just when you watch them, they don't feel as horrifying as they normally are. However, when you compare them to the Tigers, again, this unbelievable September run, this is still an offense which has been better in September, but still ranks, I believe, 18th in WRC plus, and on the season is like bottom 5 in OBP. And their 3 best hitters are all lefties, right? Parker Meadows, Riley Green, and Kerry Carpenter, who destroys right-handers and is sort of a non-factor against lefties. Green is awesome all the time. But beyond that, it's a lot of really young guys who we just haven't really seen play very much Major League Baseball. And so maybe that's a good thing. And maybe they all show up and they all, go 1 for 25.
But where the Tigers close the gap is on the bump. For most of these previews, we're going to separate starting pitching and the bullpen. Can't really do that with the Tigers because of how they go about their pitching. The predicted possible starting pitching matchups are as follows. I believe game 1 is set. That will be Framber Valdez against Tarek Skubal. That is a delicious first course. One of the most experienced postseason starters we have in baseball in Framber against the AL Cy Young in waiting, Tarek Skubal, making his first career postseason start. Game 2 looks like it's going to be Hunter Brown for the Astros, the Detroit kid, against, we will see. Game 3, Yusei Kikuchi, left-hander for the Astros against, we're going to find out at some point before the game, you'd think. And that is because the Tigers have just been mixing and matching their arms in a very non-traditional fashion for a lot of the month. The only guys that give real starts to besides Skubal,
since they traded Flaherty, right? I mean,
yeah, the guys that give Reese Olson starts, right? But he has not been back healthy for too long. They give Keter Montero starts, but he pitched today, and I don't think we'll get a start. I would assume that one of the 2 games in this series would be an opener to a gentleman named Brant Herter, who will be the bulk boy. All right. I'm going to ask this question. Who has the better pitching, the Astros or the Tigers? We obviously think that the Astros starters, given their depth, are probably better. But as a whole, if you could have all of the pitchers on either of these teams on your postseason roster, who do you want?
I mean, again, if you just look at the numbers, just full ERA for the whole season and just across the board, you could add up all the FWAR and the WHIP and the ERA, the Tigers rank better. Now, some of that is, of course, how horrible the Astros were on the mound for the first couple months, right? We should not forget about that. Okay. And so, whereas over the last couple months, we know Detroit has had this amazing run with all these bullpen games, but the Astros rotation has really rounded into form. And so I still have to give the edge slightly to Houston because it's not going to be as much of a button mashing extravaganza with AJ Hinch managing. But at the same time, that is what has worked for Detroit for the last month plus. So I'm not saying that strategy cannot work, but I still lean Houston slightly because at the end of the day, they do still also have Josh Hader and Brian Abreu, who are two of the best relievers on earth. And Brian Presley is a good reliever. And I just think that I know what the plan is for more of the Astros innings with good pitchers in a way that still leads the edge there, but it is close.
I think I would take Detroit. I think I would take Detroit for this very simple reason. It's not like they have a regular frontline guy starting game one as their one real starter, right? It's not as if it's, no disrespect, I'm just trying to pull a starter out of my butt, like Logan Gilbert, okay? Who
That's
had a
really terrible example. Logan Gilbert will be
but he's not the Cy Young. That is my point. Like he's Corbin Burns.
Fourth.
Corbin Burns is maybe even a better example, right? Like Skubal has been the best pitcher on the planet this year in the American League. And for that reason, I think he could just win that game.
Well,
that's dominate that guy.
It's that, and it's a 3-game series. So that's why I think you can make the case for Detroit, is while what I just said, I don't know what the plan is for a lot of these innings after Skubal. I do know that they don't have to actually cover that many. Whereas while I do think you are probably disrespecting how good Brown and Kikuchi have been over the last month and a half, I do think that, if Skubal can just win game one, that's really the question that we're having, is can they just bullpen their way to a second victory over those next 2 games? And it's very possible they can.
Detroit's top 4 relievers, Brisky, Holton, Foley, and Will Vest, are like all really good. Like they all have ERAs like under 2.3 in September too. Like they're all hot right now. Jackson Jobe is a big, keep an eye on that guy. We talked about him last episode, throwing 100 out of the pen. Could he be a factor? We shall see. And for Houston, it's like, I'm not really sure who you trust behind Abreu, Hader, and Presley. It's just a much less reliable situation for them.